much removal. There's almost too much, but that's the whole point of the deck. You have so much removal that almost no matter your draw, you should be able to fend off any kind of aggression, and then you play Kaz. But my worry is the ramp just obviously makes the Druid faster, just in general, of getting to their end game than the Warrior. The draw is better generally for the Druid as well. And then it's the fact that they just have what feels like endless threats of their own that do just outpace the Warrior, and that's even forgetting about things like resizing pouch, which can make things even sillier, right?
I'll tell you what I was forgetting about, Raven, and that's ZloyGruzin's anxiety-inducing headphone cable. Like, oh no, I don't think I can deal with this for an entire season.
Didn't he, I can't remember which Masters tour it was, but didn't he pop off and it looked like he was about to yank it out?
Yep.
I remember that.
That happened.
Like downside we can see in Jarla's hand, of course, and I do agree with the way he's built it, but he didn't want to leave himself completely open to aggro, right? So this Spammy Arcanist is a tech card he's chosen to play, which I do like. In this matchup, though, the only minion you ever really see is the I'm sorry, the name's elude me, even though I've played the deck. Oh, it is what I was going to call it, the Onyxian Drake. Cool.
Yes.
But like, you're only really ever going to see that sometimes early. But outside of that, you just don't see minions, right? It is really all about just getting to Kaz and Raid Boss, because they're the only minions in the deck.
I just want to say that Spammy Arcanist is one of my favorite names for a Hearthstone card ever. It just continuously amuses me every time I hear it.
And this is the extra problem, right? Like, when you're asking me about how Warrior fares versus Druid with removal.
Yeah.
And you look at the usual suspects like Solar Cenarian Ward, and again, Cenarian Ward's not really played in the other versions at the moment, but it's not really brawlable. It's often not blade stormable properly, so it's already soaking up either none or more than one removal tools to be able to clean it up. So it's things like that that really help out. And then when you rock in potentially double like the threats from Yashiraj, as well as potential burst damage from the quad moon touched amulet across the course of the game, it starts getting very, very silly. Are you just staring at the cable, Sol? Because I feel like that's what you're doing.
I'm trying not to.
I knew it.
I'm trying to do. Jarla very much committing, it seems, to using his resizing pouch or pouches for additional threats this game.
Yeah.
Like he had the option right there to go 1 mana resizing pouch, take a Vate or a Bloom, and then just be able to ramp out Guff quicker. But he chose to turn that down, which does seem to signify that he's going to use that to potentially turn into a Kazakhstan if he needs it, if he wants to go for an 8-drop, or just a potentially huge 10-drop threat later on if he can get above 10 mana with the Wild Heart Guff. Yep, exactly.
And I like it because also you have the double benefit of playing like this as well, or at least taking your time, is Jarla's not going to be playing any minions for quite a while, I would imagine. And then one of the main sources of Warrior card draw just doesn't work anymore, which is this Outrider's Axe. Like, there's nothing to hit into, so it becomes just a 3-4 weapon, which is decent in itself, but it's just not cycling through the deck as quickly, because now there's the issue of Jarla has card draw once this Guff comes down, and he has ramp. ZloyGruzin has neither of these things, really. I mean, he does have the cutting class in hand, but just in general, I'm talking about.
Love the swing, by the way, from ZloyGruzin on the previous turn. He was debating it, but I think that is definitely in line with what he should be doing. Already has Rakara in hand, already has Kazakhstan in hand, which means that he can at least have a decent stab at just being a serious aggressor in this game, right? Just push some damage through, try and do the same with Rakara, try and get some damage sources off the Kazakhs and go from there. We also saw a big fist pump coming out from ZloyGruzin when we didn't see the overgrowth come out. But unfortunately for him, he was then met with the Guff on the turn straight after, which means this is not going to be as straightforward a game as Zloy might have hoped for here.
Yeah, Jarla assessing all the outcomes here and potentials of these 3 cards, but honestly, I was staring at Celestial just to see how that pans out, because even if your opponent does land the Kaz as a response, it's going to be a while before those treasures are impactful in any way.
Yeah, that's fair.
Frozen Buckler coming down. It's still useful for Jarla because if he can peel the armor, it's one less card that's going to activate Shield Chatter easily, for example.
Mm-hmm.
What I am really interested in is to see how, when, and what Jarla uses Solar Eclipse on in this matchup. Because there's so many different things, right?
There is.
You could like Solar Cenarion, which is, the go-to, but there's Solar Nature Studies, Solar Resizing Pouch, like Solar Moonlit Guidance. Like there's so many things you could really pop off with to gain more threats or more options that it's actually too many. There's too much choice.
Yeah. I did wonder, obviously, he had the option to just straight up play a 7-mana Cenarion ward there, which, sometimes you do want to consider just holding on to Cenarion for Solar, as you were saying, but again, not a matchup that I have a massive amount of experience with so far, but I can certainly see the logic of wanting to use Solar for extra threats, like the kind of Solar Resizing Pouch that you were talking about, particularly when you have Guff already, right? Because otherwise you're like, wow, how am I going to like Solar Resizing Pouch for good threats? But when you have Guff, that's a formality. You just get to like 13 mana, and then you Solar Resizing Pouch, and then you take 2 10-drops. It's easy. So definitely think that Jarla could be in business here, especially when he is just naturally a Yasharaj deck, right? Which puts another insane 10-drop in the pool for him to be able to hit off resizing.
And already, just talking about it, yes, this warrior has a ton of removal. But just imagine how many big boards Jarla can actually make with this deck. It gets like very, very silly. Look how slow ZloyGruzin has to play, or at least has chosen to play. He's not playing any tempo minions out. He could have played the Onyxian Drake at some point in this game just to play a 4/5. But he's choosing to take it slow as well. But just the difference, like, yes, he can play the Rakara next turn, but I imagine if he's not swinging, he isn't going to play Rakara next turn. Probably is going to go for coin Kaz. And if that's the case, then Jarla's game plan becomes a lot simpler, right? Survive. You like committing both of these strongmen here? Because it does feel like a coin Kaz turn.
Yes, certainly one. I'm like 80% that the second one comes down. However, this is Jarla, so in the spirit of Jarla does the bare minimum, I'd like to make a bet that he doesn't. Yeah, okay.
Yep.
I'm sticking with it. I probably still would have played the second one in that situation, but if you ask me a different question of, is Jarla going to do it? No, I don't think he was.
Oh, ZloyGruzin just saying.
Baby.
Wow, this is a play you see a lot of people bail out of in this situation, right? Because that's the point of the play from Jarla as well, right? To make your opponent bail out of something like this. But ZloyGruzin saying, nope, I ain't messing around. I need these treasures now. They're going to win or lose me the game. Let's go. I am guessing he took Holy Book there?
He did take Book, yeah.
Oof, they're tricky. Like, Pure Cold doesn't quite feel as powerful against a deck that can gain 1,000,000 armor.
Yeah, when your opponent's on 49 and you're the defensive player, it doesn't seem quite as attractive, I have to admit.
And you're the one that does not play Solar. It's like...
There you go. Locusts is all you need. That's 56 damage right there that he just put in his deck.
Yeah, Locust, though. There is a problem. Called Wing Commander Mulverick. Ultimate Locust Slayer.
What in Jarla's deck is going to honorable kill a 2/2, though?
Mulverick himself.
Uh-huh.
And he summons a 2/2.
Oh, I see, yeah.
And that kills one and summons a 2/2, and then that kills one.
Okay.
Yeah, it's sick.
Think, Guff, think.
It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, suddenly
honestly, from Jarla. Like, does he just double Umbral into this and keep the board state how it is on his side? An 8-8-6-6, hit him in the face, pass?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely my default reaction to the situation, is just to push 14 and say, all right, better draw a good treasure this turn.
Yeah.
Like, ZloyGruzin has been setting up for this for quite some time. Like, you'll note over the last few turns, he hasn't been playing cutting class at any point. He hasn't been dumping cards to from his hand to make room for cutting class, because he's been setting up this kind of situation exactly where he wants to draw treasures quickly instead. So I do like this, but honestly, like, ooh, Zloy's very happy. I guess a Wax Rager. Okay, cool. Jarla, you know, I hesitate with my words here. I'm not going to call this a mistake in the true sense of the word, but playing the second strongman there a turn later kind of concedes that he wishes he'd done it a turn earlier, right? When the tempo Kazakus comes down. Obviously, that's results-oriented because we've then seen the Kazakus and we're reacting to that situation. But that is something that you have to factor into the equation of just playing it out for tempo in the first place.
And I will say, it was my genuine surprise that ZloyGruzin just said, nah, I'm going to ignore this and just play cards. Like, on Jarla's defense, I was very surprised that he didn't respect that board in any way.
That's the thing. He ignored 14. Would he have ignored 20? That's the big question that you have to ask yourself.
Yeah. Oh, no. Not seeing this, and I don't think I want to know.
What? Oh, spammy Arcanist Wax Rager. I believe
does kill it, right?
I believe it's capped in the same way that Bladestorm is server-side somewhere. I think I've seen it written about somewhere. I've never actually seen it myself.
Yeah, I don't know whether the cap kills it or not. Oh no, that should always work, right? It should kill it. Yeah. Jarla keeping things simple and just says, okay, let's go again. Moonlight's going to be pretty interesting as well. I want to look at using that soon, because what's he even got left? Abominable Lieutenant, Cenarian Ward number 2. They're the only real 2 big cards, right, to Moonlit, I think.
And well, also the Solars, right, for the resizing pouch and other tools that he has, It'd be a big deal as well. Had the Blaster coming through, clearing up board state number 2. I think Jarla will go fishing with the guidance here, does find the Solar, does also find an additional copy of Resizing Pouch, which essentially is Solar Resizing Pouch, right? If you just take Resizing Pouch and play it, like, it's kind of the same thing.
Gonna bloom Solar, because if he doesn't bloom, he doesn't have the mana to get 10 drops.
Not ideal.
Do you take Dark Moon ever?
I'm going to shout out, just want to point this out as a fact, at some point you will have mana to go Survival Raid Boss in the same turn. Just going to throw that out there.
I think it's more important to say at some point you'll have the mana to go Survival Rabbit.
Ah, yes.
You know what, sad soul, I've had that done to me.
What? Why? Who hurt you, Raven? Point me in their general direction.
The ranks I play at, Sol. I've seen some things.
Yeah, true. That thing scares me.
Kaldara Drake. Enough. Wax Rager, I keep staring at it and just thinking, like, Spammy Arcanist always does 2. Minimum, right? Which is pretty sick. If the Wax Rager stays at 1, of course. What happens? Wait. And Onyxia in the same turn. Does that do things?
Onyxia and what in the same turn?
Random Ulrich. It'll give all the whelps rush, and yeah, obviously each whelp won't
honorable
proc
kill.
singly, but combined, every 2 whelps will proc a new 2/2 to then trade through.
True, yeah. And then you need 2 of those 2/2s to then activate honorable kill again.
Yeah, the Onyxia would start with the shield kill, right, initially?
Yep. But probably
Wait, no,
better
it's
to
just a board
just do
play,
this.
right? Yeah, of course.
This is what I've been telling you. It's what I've been saying the whole time. It keeps respawning until everything dies. But I think this is just capped at some point. Like, I think we're going to sit here and watch this for a while, and then it just gets capped. Yeah, okay.
That was faster than I expected. I've never actually seen it happen. It was a lot faster than I thought it would be. Still so much juice for Jarla. Weapons coming in handy though for ZloyGruzin. Like the Bible of the Face is fine.
Yeah. He can take care of most situations for a turn or 2 here for sure. With the remaining charge of that Hyper Blaster, still has another one left remaining in the deck. Still has 1,000,000 damage worth of Locusts left to come as well, with 1 remaining Twin Spell and a whole fresh copy left in there as well. As Bulwark if things start going up a creek.
Yeah, I think that's the big problem, isn't it? Like, if Jarla gets past the Locusts, all of them, and I'm not on about on board, but in the game,
yes,
then he can just fatigue, right? He just wins off the back of that, I think.
Probably.
So that's, I think, all Jarla has to concern himself with is every single turn, what helps me beat 4 waves of Locusts.
Yeah. And
Onyxia
it sounds
does, which is
very like solar, moonlit, take pouches into Yogs. Just turn these to end up dealing with all this.
Or raid boss Onyxias.
Or raid boss Onyxias.
They're perfect too.
Yeah, true. Yep, exactly.
Or if we could really pick Rancors, but, you know, maybe we can't pick those.
Rope burning with 13 mana still left to spend. That's what you like to see.
Oh, it is raid boss, right?
Oh, of course it's Yogg. It's always Yogg. What are you talking?
Oh my, Jarla. I thought I knew you.
19 mana successfully spent? Yes, okay.
Really nice play as well, like defending the Onyxia, so it won't die to the weapon.
Yeah, really important Lunar Eclipse actually on reflection, yeah.
Well, ZloyGruzin does have the Onyxian Drake though to just flip the wings of the 2/1, or just he could Locust into it if he really wanted to.
He doesn't. He doesn't want to do that.
But he could. That's all I'm saying, Sol. He could.
He definitely does not want to do that. How many days old were you when you found out Locust could go face, Raven?
I think it was a good 1.5 to 2.
Okay, good.
By days old, you mean days into the mini set?
Sure, yeah, that works. Yeah. Point of the story is that Raven didn't know Locust could go face for quite a long time.
I honestly hadn't seen it. It was odd. I played against loads of Druids, and it just never happened. And what's worse is I played as Druid, and because I just assumed the card would be too strong if it could go face, I never tried. I just aimed it at minions.
Also, we've done that other thing that never happens, which is Druid hitting 20 mana. Remember that?
Oh,
that thing?
Shut up. I never said it never happens. I said I've not seen it.
Well, now you have.
Yeah, I saw it ages ago, so I'll get with the times. Jeez.
Sorry, I'm having to like residually roast you for everything dumb you said during a tournament I didn't actually cast.
Yeah, that's not allowed.
To get it out of my system. Oh, okay.
Not allowed.
Okay.
Don't cast it. You don't get to say anything.
That's probably fair, actually.
Yeah, if you're gonna slack, like, and just not bother turning up, that's definitely what happened. You weren't. You weren't always supposed to not work it, you just didn't turn up.
Yep, no, that's right.
But more importantly, that's a few Yashiraj and that's a few strongmen.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see what I mean now about, like, even though it looks doable, it never feels doable? This is a lot of my games as Warrior. And yes, Jarla's probably, you know, played the Druid better than most people would have played it, but in general, it feels like this. They just have more stuff, and it never ends. And your treasures are also only so good, right? Sometimes you play games where your treasure offerings aren't that special, and then you're even weaker against the end game of the Druid.
Trying to figure out what's Jarla seen at this point. He's seen a Wax Rager, he's seen a Hyper Blaster, he's seen a Locust, he's seen an Annoyo board. That's 4.
Yes.
Has he seen the 5th treasure yet at this point? Does he know what everything is? I don't think so, right? The one remaining one is Holy Book that we haven't seen from the deck.
Yeah, he's not seen it. Nope.
ZloyGruzin? Yeah.
Not seen it.
Just in terms of what you want to play around, like Wand is the big one, for example. If you know whether or not there is a Wand in your opponent's deck, that makes a massive deal as opposed to how you build boards.
He is playing around Wand. He has 3 extra Yashirajas.
That is true. I mean, he's not running out of threats, Raven. I'm not going to lie. He's doing fine.
Did you see the combo I posted earlier when I was playing Druid?
Yes, yeah, I did.
Right. The old Kel'Thuzad.
Headmaster
Wand.
Kel'Thuzad,
Oh.
Wand of Disintegration, yeah.
See, look, they go into a minion. They trade. I will say, while we've got Jarla just deciding which way he wants to win the game, the Yogg genuinely surprised me. Maybe because, well, he didn't have the Yashirajas when he picked Yogg, right? 'Cause
No, yeah, he had one. The first resizing pouch was a Yashiraj pick, and then the second one was the Yogg.
Because I'm just genuinely wonder whether, like, yes, you could argue it's a backup plan if something really goes wrong and you need to steal a win, which is absolutely fair. But I do just think, like, maybe it's my fear of Yogg or something that I would have just picked Raid Boss and Ixia because you've seen Locust and it's a Locust clear, like, every time.
Yeah.
But this is me going extremely nitpicky because Jarla's so far ahead right now, so who am I to even talk?
Ah, yes, Mark of the Spike Shell. Exactly what we need. More value.
I love that that gets played as a 12-12 and there's just 7 mana knocking around afterwards.
I know.
It's like, wait a minute.
Isn't Guff great?
Yeah.
All right, deal with that, buddy.
No damage. Suddenly a shield shatter, although a strong card, does not feel strong enough.
No.
I judge you worthy.
Jarla has been judged worthy.
Yeah. And there we go. Like, there was 2 Yashiraj, a Yogg. There was still more stuff in the deck for Jarla. And he won with basically no problems whatsoever when you look at that end game state. I do like ZloyGruzin's play of just disrespecting the board Jarla made and just playing Kaz. Because, again, just from my personal experience, if he tries to remove that board and then remove the next one and then remove the next one, he definitely loses the game. Because then his only actual playable threat is Raid Boss and Ixia, which isn't enough to beat Druid at that point in the game, right? So I do like that he made that big turn of just saying, I ignore this, what was it, 14 damage on board? I'm going to play Kaz, and I'm going to take my treasures and try and win off the back of those. I think that was the correct choice. But again, just from my own experience, this matchup is so difficult for the Warrior.
Yeah, and I think, again, it does make sense. Like, having seen it play out, yeah, the regular removal in Warrior's deck was not going to line up with all that stuff anyway once you start factoring in solar resizing pouches,
Exactly.
extra Yashirages, and every extra Yashiraj generating 4 extra 0 mana 6/6 taunts, and then 8 extra 0 mana 6/6 taunts, and so on and so forth. Like, it wasn't going to get there, so the aggressive plan really worked out. I think what's really interesting is the Wax Rager pick, which clearly he was really excited about, right? Because we got the big fist pump when he drew Wax Rager first card after the Kaz, that he was really, really happy to see, which makes sense, right? Infinite 5-1, he's trying to pressure down his opponent, just having a 5-1, hitting for 5 every single turn seemed like a thing he should be interested in. But actually, it was such a double-edged sword in that scenario because of the spammy Arcanist interaction coming back the other way, with that one-of tech card in Jarla's deck just really being crucial to clear a board which probably he wouldn't have got close to clearing otherwise, even with all the Mulverick interactions that we were talking about. So the Wax Rager did come back to bite ZloyGruzin a little bit in the long run.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, what was surprising as well is the only time I've seen Wax Rager like really get work done is when I can't remember the name of the treasure, so I'm sorry, but the the buff and summon 2 copies of, like when that that's it. When that was played on a Wax Rager, then I felt in trouble before, but a single one, unless I'm dead to 5 damage next turn, I've never really felt that bothered about it, and because he didn't have access to that, right? So it was just pretty interesting overall. But that was just game number 1. Jarla getting off to a great start and what looked like a very, very comfortable start as well. We did just see, I believe, ZloyGruzin is going to be on his Burn Shaman, and it's going to go up against Jarla's Warrior, but again, it's going to be a Charge Warrior, which I believe we saw Give Please end the day in APAC with a victory, a very swift victory over Glory in the last game.
Yeah, super aggro strats, right? Just like finished off with half the combo in the end. Yeah, it was a very, very quick game and a very stellar performance for the deck, but not a deck that we've seen so far today represented for Europe. Jarla is entering the fray. No great surprise, of course, that he is going to rely on some form of Control Warrior. It has been one of the decks that he has gravitated towards multiple times. We have talked about his propensity for thinking outside the box a little bit when it comes to lineup construction. I think sometimes that is his great strength. I think sometimes it's a crushing weakness as well. Like, I genuinely believe Jarla would be a world champion by now if he didn't like Galakrond Warlock so much. Like, I genuinely think that's a fact.
I'm laughing because it could well be true.
Yeah. But in this case, I think Control Warrior is a deck that he's very well known for going back to the well on multiple times over multiple expansions. So yes, this is a control deck with a win condition, which might not fit some people's definitions of control, but this absolutely is a Control Warrior package with a finisher at the end.
Prefer to think it's a win condition with some control cards.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, again, it feels like it's just, I mean, I don't know how you feel about this, but I think because of the lack of minions, and by minions I mean minions you would just play on the board and not part of the combo for Jarla, of course, but the lack of those means that, well, the whole freeze side of ZloyGruzin's deck just is non-existent to an extent, right? Which means that Jarla can take more time to actually just stay healthy and not die to burn. The trick is knowing how much that burn actually is, right? Because I think that's the difficulty against Shaman. A lot of the times I've been like, oh, I should be set up dead. And I'm like, oh, okay, I thought I had, like, plenty of health that turn, never mind. I could have armored up more.
And then you have that face that Casey had at the end of the game with the turn 6 kill from the Zaki Mage. Yeah.
Can I get a ref to check how much mana this guy's used? Like, what's going on? So yeah, pretty scary overall. This is a cool card that ZloyGruzin's playing though, which is it is correct, right? A natural Lady Vash.
Yep. Yes, in the deck.
It is, yeah. 1 natural Lady Vash, 1 Landslide, 1 Wind Chill, 1 Primal Dungeoneer, 1 Rust Rot Viper. Are all the 1-drops or 1-ofs.
Nature waits for no one but
sick a little bit in my mouth, just so we're all aware.
That was for you, Sal.
Yeah.
So good though, like a 2-3 straight into Outrider Axe. Exactly what you want. Because one, again, for some reason I've been playing Warrior a lot over the past few weeks. I played a lot of this deck as well before I went over to the full control version. And what the weakness, as far as I believe, is because you run so many combo cards, to the front does nothing. Fade nothing. Galvanga, again, you don't really want to play unless you're killing someone. So it does mean that your actual removal side of your deck can be a lot weaker, with hands similar to this, right? Faceless, Rakara that's unplayable, to the front, another weapon. Like, it's not really high on removal, so if Jarla was actually getting smoked down, it would be a much bigger problem when you're playing this version, whereas if you play the version we saw earlier on, then almost every card in your deck is good removal, right? So it's much less the amount of time that you're actually whiffing against tempo or aggro plays.
Now we have to have a talk, Raven. Say the name of 6-mana, 6/6 charge guy again.
Galvanga?
Galvanga. Okay, because I've heard everyone. Do you know for a fact that's how it's pronounced? Like, is that like a World of Warcraft lore thing where you've heard the name said out loud?
It is, but the problem is it was in Altered Valley, and most of my time then was actually years and years and years ago because it was in like initial WoW, not one of the many expansions. I've heard
everyone else. I've heard everyone else saying Galvangar, yeah, like that. But the way I read it is much closer to how you've just said it. So I'd like
be careful, Sol.
I know.
You saying the way I say words is you agree with.
I know. This is why I'm doubting myself. This is why we have to have the conversation live on air and waste everyone's time with it.
I'll be the professional one here and bring us back to the game. But no, I think I just say Galvango because it's just easier to say. That's the answer to most of my ways I say words. That doesn't sound right. It's easier for me.
The great shaman mystery has been solved, finally. Raven's just lazy.
It's ZloyGruzin is pound on the pressure and an early bash coming out as well. Meaning that his hand is very full. And these are the hands that get you. You think you're safe on what's Jarla on 33? You think you're safe. You could just be dead.
Yeah, this really breaks the equation, right? When you have to start accounting for spells that could potentially cost 0 at this point, like that really ruins with your calculations of how much damage you could possibly be taking on any given turn. Jarla does, of course, have the bulwark available, but again, we talk about it so much, but it is genuinely not a meme. It is a real thing. Convincing Jarla to use a resource is incredibly difficult.
I've missed this game.
Yep.
Is he going to use it? The answer's always no, but sometimes we say yes.
Yep.
And then it's no. Yeah, I think here, though, honestly, and I think the way Jarla should approach this is, oh, look, a 5/4 with spell damage, kill it. I don't care about value because you can just die. He has a shield slam here ready to go. It looks like he's going to go Barov instead, at least to start with a card draw. This means he loses cutting class options this turn, which is a little bit surprising.
Yeah, he has. Well, but he has Rakara lined up, right, which is going to make the free anyway. So I don't think he's particularly interested in spending mana on that cutting class anyway, because he'll just save that later on.
Interesting though that he went for then the Corsair Cash, which I understand card draw is good and get it out your deck fine, but he went with that over the hero power if he's playing on Rakara in anyway.
True.
But again, card draw is so much more, even more important in this version because you simply cannot get stuck with combo in hand when you need to kill things.
Yeah.
Rakara not only kills off the 3/2, but pushes a bit of damage, and suddenly you do need to think about how much like natural damage you can push because there are so many different ways you can do this Galvanga combo that don't have to always do the set full card combo. You can do like tons of different like little ones that get there most of the time. Go for more card draw.
Yeah, sticking with the Outrider's Axe instead here. Now we'll see how committed he is. Yeah, all right, no trading on the heavy plate, just takes the armor up, holds the heavy plate in hand, which is, I think, a smart decision at this point. You are well aware at this point that your opponent is hoarding 1 0-mana spell in hand, so they probably have a fairly straightforward plan for that in the future.
The lightning bolt.
You just start ripping damage at the face at this point. Yup.
I mean, why not? The only thing limiting ZloyGruzin right now really is mana, isn't it? So, although he'll be overloaded next turn, his hand size is a little bit too big. So just push damage. The damage is done. If they're going to armor up, they're going to armor up anyway. It doesn't matter.
Right.
That's the big thing as well, right? Like, against this type of warrior, ZloyGruzin can't necessarily take his time either, because then he will just die to combo on the other side. So it's kind of a weird sort of a cat and mouse game for both these players.
Yeah, and you know we've talked about how Jarla is trying to amass a combo, but you know counterintuitively sometimes those combo cards are just dead cards in the hand he's trying to get there. There is a little bit of that going on with the Shaman as well, because the whole freeze package in this deck right now is entirely pointless for ZloyGruzin's game plan. So having double Snowfall Guardian in hand, for example, just eating up space that can't be filled by other cards with those multicasters, for example, is actually very annoying.
Yeah, this is one of the few decks that everyone's answer on Twitter to how to beat Shaman is to just never play minions actually works out.
It's 10. Every time I see it, it's 10 armor.
10 is a lot. 10's a big number.
So much. It's so much bigger than 5, Raven. I don't know if you're aware of this, but it's a much bigger number.
Yeah, I've crunched the numbers and I believe it's double. Double.
Check it again.
Crunch. Just press the button.
Now press the old crunching button over here.
Yeah, like, they're not even good throwawayable cards, right? The Snowfalls in this matchup. Like, a lot of the time, if you have a very specific card, it's at least got average stats. So you just throw it out as a thing, right? It's not doing its job, but it's a thing. This is a 6-mana 3/3 against Warrior. Like, it's going to do nothing. What's this?
Not mad at this.
Plus 2 spell damage. Just chuck 5 damage there.
Yeah, chuck some damage face, make some space in the hand for multicasters over the next turn or two to find the rest of the damage. I don't hate it.
Well, he has to do something, right? And his whole hand is this, so why not?
Yep. Overdraft, get the mana back that he needs for the multicaster.
Might not have been the turn he wanted, but it was an awfully clean turn.
Bloombolt overdraft for what? 10 more? Pretty good.
Yeah, definitely. I did not add the natural one. I just missed one off the top. So where is this? That's 2 to the fronts.
Reminder that Rakara adds 10 armor. Just don't know why I feel like pointing that out in this exact situation, but you know.
So 4.
Let's see.
You can heavy plate swap a lethal, right?
He hits exactly Galvanga, yeah.
Yeah. Do it. At this point, though, Jarla will be getting more and more confident of what reach is even available. He knows there's what? Another multicaster, 2 Snowfalls, a Viper, two Parrots. Like, that means there's only 7 cards left. I can't, grab them off the top of my head, but basically, there's not that much burst even available that left. There's Brakan, which can obviously deal 6 initially and then question mark. I believe there's another Frostbite, and there's a Primordial Studies.
Yes.
But there's actually not that much damage left.
Why I would be resistant to your plan of going for lethal, because you said, he could maybe cycle heavy plate and get lethal. He could definitely cast heavy plate and get lethal at this point, right?
Yeah, all he needs to do is not die.
Yeah, that extra 10 armor that he's going to get from heavy plate at some point is probably just going to be enough to end the game. Although, interestingly, he does still have it in his hand right now with 3 mana still available.
Also 8, isn't it?
Sorry, yeah, was I saying 10? I do that all the time.
You're obsessed with Rakara's new armor amount.
It's 10, Raven!
Stop saying 10!
And it's just so much bigger than 8. What don't you understand here? Genuinely, I do that all the time. Like, I know it's 8. Whenever I have to, count lethals or anything, my brain does it properly with 8. But when I have to say it out loud, I say 10 every single time. I don't know why, but it just happens.
Have you been listening to VODs while you sleep and it's just been stuck? Did it skip?
Maybe. Yeah, who knows?
Omle do 10.
10. 10.
Well, again, good amount of damage push from ZloyGruzin, but he is running out. He might have to heavily rely on Brakan being very nice to him.
We have the honorable kill available again this turn on the hero power, which is great. Bladestorm's not a bad draw to at least clear some of this stuff up. Probably don't want to be committing a brawl here, since probably just want to spike the Parappa the Zapper anyway.
There must be a way.
Trying to work out if there's any faceless sort of funny business that you can do.
I like spell damage clears using the opponent's spell damage.
Potentially, yeah.
I don't think so, because even then Bladestorm would just cycle once on the Zapper and then stop, right?
Yeah. It's the problem of there being a 3 health minion on the board, right, is very awkward right now for Jarla.
Water is life.
We're just going to leave him up with Vash on board.
It's better? Like, if
I mean, Jarla did it and I said it, so we're completely straight down the middle of it. Could be right or it could be wrong.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but if you just don't use the Faceless, you honorable kill into the 3-2 in the middle, and then you Bladestorm, right? So you use the same card but no Faceless. Then there's a 3-1 on board with no spell damage instead of a 4-1 with spell damage.
But the only thing is, does Jarla want the Vash Prime? Because Vash Prime does do something for him as
That's
well,
true.
right?
Yeah, no,
Like,
that
drawing
is fair.
spells is a thing.
Yeah, good point.
Ah, the ultimate mutinous counter. Just keep badly statted minions in hand.
6 health is the roll on the hero power, which is probably the worst option for Zloy at this point.
I wonder... Jarla's starting to stare at that bulwark. It's arguably like the high roll of Brawl if Vash lives, because then he can just hero power it, right? Clear the board.
Yeah.
Whereas the 2-3s are a little bit annoying. It's going to go bulwark.
Going to attack an honorable kill as well.
Okay, I like it actually.
Two charges instead of 1, essentially. Like, obviously the minion eats 1 regardless if you leave it alive, so this is only really consuming 1 charge of the weapon. And gains an extra 4 armor for it in exchange, which kind of have to consider, like, when the shaman does iterations of damage to you at this point, like, is it going to be 4? It's going to be about 4, right? So this is probably a reasonable exchange to make at this point. What even is this at this point? Is it still multicaster? Oh, no, of course it's Brucan. I'm dumb. Oh, no!
What?
Okay. Wait, he just did all that before the Viper anyway. What?
Yeah.
What's happened that turn?
No, he had to though, right?
Oh, he had to because it wouldn't
Yes,
repeat if he
because
played
they would just do
Battlecry
Viper,
first.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's
My
going,
mistake.
huh? Wait, did Jarla use it to the front?
He used a Faceless.
Or did I count a card as to the front when it wasn't? I'm so confused. I think I thought he had both to the fronts in hand. And
Oh yeah, when you were talking about the heavy plate tradable, yeah, that probably he would have needed both to the front.
yeah, I think I must have just looked at a different card. That and Buckler I often confuse because they're both just similar-ish in artwork colors.
Slowly but surely, Jarla is being ground out of this game.
Yeah.
To the front line.
It looks like he is going to have to break this up to try and defend some of his health here.
Strike harder.
Oh, ZloyGruzin seems happy. He should be, right? Because now his Snowfall Guardians are just good to go.
Very true.
And that's Taunt as well, isn't it? Ebrakan's Hero Power, I mean.
Hero power, yeah, it's 2/3.
Yeah, I always... Taunt and Heal, they always get me. I don't know why.
They do look quite similar, yeah.
But yeah, if he could even press the taunts now and then Snowfall. Like, you know?
True, yeah. I wondered if the fist bump knew that he meant he knew exactly what was left in the deck and was going to just, like, Vash Prime, draw it out, win the game. But that does not seem to be the case.
Yeah, I think it was more, well, now he knows he isn't dead.
Yes.
Then, I mean, then I think he should win, right? I don't think Jarla's really got anything left. This is going to end in a bit of a surprising outcome, honestly, Sottle. I thought Jarla had gotten over the line.
It did look that way for some time, yeah.
There must be a way.
Oh, he did take too... he took too long, like he did it on purpose, but I feel like it took too long for him to get hold of Galvanger, right? Because he's had... And this is exactly what I always talk about with this deck. Sometimes you play games where you just sit with combo pieces in hand and it makes you lose the game. Where one way or the other. Very, very tricky to deal with in a situation like this. A mutinous?
It's so annoying. Even the shield shatter with the hero power is only 7, even though you can get it cheap with the heavy play. It just still doesn't really achieve anything.
At this point, he's just not going to beat the Wild Paw Caffin, is he?
I don't think so.
I think even if he killed this 8-1, the Wild Paw Cavern plus the occasional Brakan Hero Power would just win the game anyway. He just plays Prime, right? Because he knows the 8-1 can get Hero Powered next turn. Wait, why is Wild Paw not showing green?
Because he's already got one active.
Oh, right.
He's already chugging along with Stags.
Yes, I'll take that back. He doesn't have to play the Prime.
Sangomar strain. The reservoir remains.
I mean, some of the mid-game tools he was missing, Minefield in particular, would have been very useful on a couple of these boards. Did he get?
Okay.
He got both to 2. Okay, cool. Go up to 6.
Yeah, the problem now is whenever the Brakan switches to aggro mode,
Yes.
it's just dead, right? Like, it's just too much damage. Second Wild Paw Cavern going down, not too surprising. The battle cry was Lady Vash, right? So it's probably not going to do much from the Macaw. So it looks like ZloyGruzin's going to play this Snowfall to then pretend the game goes on that long, but has the Macaw to Snowfall again to make an even bigger minion on board.
Gain 4 more again from the hero power this turn, but he is just running out of options. There is that Vash Prime.
Nothing to make use of with the Faceless either. Sometimes you can get away with games where you utilize your opponent's rush minions or taunt or big impact minions and just yoink it with a Faceless. But there's just nothing there, right? It does nothing, and that means he's just dead next turn. Unless this Vash can get something I can't think of, if I'm honest with you. He can hero power the 3-2. That gains him 4, which puts him to 7, which is exactly how much damage ZloyGruzin has on board. Nope. Too short,
That ain't
right?
it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Rough game there for Jarla. He looked like he was in a good spot, but not going to be enough. And ZloyGruzin takes his first game on stream against Jarla, making this 1-1 so far. And a long, drawn-out game, and one I think, at least he thought for a moment that he had just lost, but evens the series up, Sol.
Yeah, no, I was absolutely right there with him. I certainly would have put Jarla in a very, very favored position at the midpoint of that game, and did so. But Burn Shaman showing why it is such a resilient deck in the metagame. Even though it ran out of steam early on, like ZloyGruzin basically in the mid game just dumped all of his damage, right? In that double spell damage turn, just threw it all face. Especially since the multicaster then picked up Bloom and the other overdraft at that point. He was basically cashed out of damage, which meant he was just kind of one by one playing his threats for the rest of the game. But that turned out to be good enough to get there because it was an extremely slow combo draw in the end for Jarla, having to break up the Faceless, then hitting the second to the front at the worst possible time. Never saw Galvanga the entire time. Until he was forced to use it with the Faceless to break up anyway. So he never really had a win condition charge combo of his own in sight for the majority of that game. And then when he did, he was under so much pressure that he had to throw it away almost immediately.
Really tricky, and sometimes one of the things you can stumble into, I'm not saying this would have made a big difference, but an early Rakara puts a surprising amount of pressure on your own health because you don't have that armor gain every turn, and you're probably swinging that weapon into minions as well. And it's just less reliable. It can get you 4 armor here and there, but it's not 2 armor every single turn if you want it. Again, not saying it would have made the difference in that game, but there was a lot of health pressure based on the way ZloyGruzin played and how Jarla responded. Looks like we're gonna...
I think in that particular game, it probably was a net positive. It felt like he was getting the 4 armor every single turn, killing 2 health minions. It just didn't matter because he was leaving 1 or 2 minions behind on the board every turn.
Yeah, that's right.
It was just running out of removal, really, more so than anything else that really cost him that.
Jarla going to be jumping over to the the Big Hoot Warlock, or the Owl TK, or Owl Warlock, whatever you want to call it. And again, just another sort of a considered deck, right? Something where you have to get value out of every single card, or at least when the game doesn't go completely smooth, you have to get value out of every card to survive. Because I do think this Warlock really rides the edge of not having enough removal. Because sometimes, you know, like we said about the handlock matchup earlier, one big minion hits the board, you're just dead unless you've got exactly like, say, Moag and a couple of removal spells. So it's going to be a tough one for Jarla, I believe. Let me just triple check. He is going to be going against ZloyGruzin's Warrior. So slow deck versus combo deck right now. Who do you think's got the favorite here, Soto?
I mean, I think this is fairly similar to what we saw before in the previous Control Warrior game. I think this is something that people have thought about coming into this. Again, coming back to Super Fake, I think it's a motivation to some of his decisions. Is the expectation that a chunk of people might bring Control Warrior and how you can punish that? And I think that is, you know, potentially what Jarla is looking at himself here with, you know, similar package but with Charge Warrior, and then with the massively stacked threat dense Druid on the other side, and then LTK, which can basically do near enough infinite damage to be able to outpace any armor gain. So I think Zloy will probably just go towards the same kind of thing that he was looking at against the Druid, which is try and switch gears and be the aggressor with a Kazakhstan plan instead. But obviously that's not always something that materializes, particularly in a non-Druid deck. When you're playing Druid, you have all those consistent card draws and tutoring effects that can get you to whatever you need very consistently. When you're playing a different deck, you don't have that luxury. You might even just not get Kaz in the first place.
Yeah, and you start to think, right, Jarla clearly believes this overall outline that you were saying about Control Warrior, and maybe just the wider meta as well, because he's got this deck, he's got the Druid, which we saw just laugh in the face of this deck, and then he has his own Warrior, but it's Charge, so even if he's not expecting to win the Charge Warrior versus Control Warrior matchup specifically, it means he isn't going to fall prey to his own plan from other people, right? Because he's bringing something a little bit different, something that's got more of a chance with that damage combo, as opposed to just being value. So you can really start to see that picture of why Jarla's lineup looks like it looks right now.
Getting cards out of hand, this is particularly important when you do have a rod set up already, because obviously you want to make space in hand preemptively, so as soon as you play the rod, you can start drawing cards straight away. So Jarla just dumping some needless cards that he didn't have any purpose for.
And do feel like I do have to mention it, especially in this meta. No Viper whatsoever in ZloyGruzin's deck. So there's no weapon removal. Jarla can do this with complete freedom. But I do like what ZloyGruzin has done, right? Instead of obviously not having that weapon removal, he played a minion into the turn where he expected coin weapon, right? Which is about as good as you're going to get.
Sure, yeah, that makes sense. Kind of an
He's not gonna
interesting
be shield slamming anything, is he?
Honestly, I didn't check because I just kind of naturally assumed it would be in here. I feel like when you're playing Rust-Drop Viper in Shaman and Rust-Drop Viper in Fell Demon Hunter, that putting it in your Control Warrior is kind of a given at that point, but it's kind of weird to me that he actually hasn't done that, but you are absolutely right.
Well, it's the issue of Kazakus, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if the Viper's last card in your deck, then you've got some problems as to, like, you not being able to play Kaz.
Yep.
I guess that's the thing. One thing I have seen from a few people, or something I've definitely thought about, is in the Control Warrior, whether you can ever get away with Mutinous and just say, I'm slower, potentially, with Kaz, but I can sometimes snipe my opponent's win condition instead, which surely then if you still have Kaz later and you're a Control Warrior, you should win. Yeah, though Jarla already getting off to a great start, right? Just having that initial reduction done. And options start working towards another reduction. I mean, even with this hand, he's close to the point where he can actually just do the actual minion combo as opposed to using Wicked. Gonna have to play one out, or that would have been an overdraw.
Yeah, I didn't really find anything else dumpable over the past couple of turns. His hand is kind of just stacked these weird utility cards. No additional cycle, no Tamsin in sight, no additional backfire. So he is just probably going to have to spend a turn or two getting some cards out of hand here before he can start refilling and getting those additional procs off.
Yeah, Jarla choosing to bring Hysteria as a one-of in his list, which isn't super common, but something that's biting him just a little bit now in this specific game.
Yeah, I think it does make sense, though, and I would expect the majority of lists to move towards that for as long as Miracle Priest hangs around in the meta, right? Like, I think that is a tech card that does make some sense.
Yeah, I mean, even in Miracle Priest, there's a lot of times that you go for Hysteria, right, as well, because you just don't run those kind of defenses to just clear big boards, similar to this deck. This made me laugh that sometimes the hardest part of playing this Warlock is actually just sorting your hand out.
Not having 10 cards in hand.
It is really difficult, because you also start to get to the point where you start to make arguments for a lot of cards. Even if you don't strictly need them, you think, oh yeah, but I could use it for this later. And you're like, well, no, I'm going to overdraw and lose the game. Imagine this is just Drained Soul. Oh no, sorry, he's got Moag down, hasn't he? That's...
Uses touch instead. The other option, of course, was to just use both and be wasteful to deliberately create hand space there with the eyes towards playing Tamsin over the next couple of turns and wanting hand space in hand to be able to do that. But obviously we're dealing with Jarla here, so the accusation of being wasteful is not something that he's ever had to deal with.
Well, I'm going to accuse him now. I see a 1 mana still left over.
That is true.
And he could have used Drain Soul and kept a 0 mana card.
That is the worst kind of wasteful. You are right.
Doesn't playing a raid boss Elixir and Warrior make you realise how fast Druid is?
Yes.
Like, I'm still on 7 mana. 3 more turns before I could even play this. Druid's like, I just played 3 of those last week.
Turn 4, mate.
Yeah. ZloyGruzin doing his best though, using the weapon to just push as much damage as possible, put Jarla under some amount of pressure at least.
Yeah, trying to be as aggressive as he possibly can, but I do think trying is the operative word in this position.
Best. There's another rod here for Jarla, but the follow-up does feel a little bit weird. Like, can't rod Tamsin for multiple reasons. Rod Viper swap, and then see, maybe even Drain Soul the Viper or something? Is that where he's at?
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I thought about that line. It does make sense. It's the best line to just have you jam Tamsin next turn and have space in hand to be able to do so. But I don't know. Like, obviously, perfect world, he can do infinite, or I mean, not infinite, but ridiculous amounts of damage. 7 times 8 times 2 worth of damage very, very easily if he gets the setup right. But there is still a bulwark to be contended with as well. So he might want to just save that Rust Rot Viper, especially because it's going to end up costing 0 here anyway, just to deal with the bulwark when that comes down instead.
And it's just a one-of in his list as well, so he does have to respect that fact.
Zloy was just willing the big dragon into the hand there on curve on turn 8, so he might have some kind of win condition in this game. But absolutely not there.
Like a swing, punch with the Hulk hands.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then, what do you think? Re-equip which weapon? I think if I'm ZloyGruzin here, I'm getting a little bit scared of dying soon, although there hasn't been an owl, so that's one positive. Maybe that leads to the Outrider Axe at least for next turn's damage.
Yeah.
But with the second weapon equipped, I'm scared.
Yeah, I think the way Jarla's hand has read, there might be owls in there, which he just hasn't really wanted to allocate the mana to playing yet, but I think he's still a card or two short with the way things have been playing out so far, which in this case is just really the phylactery that he is missing at the moment. But he has just picked up his first owl, which means it is pretty expensive for this point in the game, but with these second rod discounts that he's about to pick up, he should be able to make everything nice and cheap here.
And this always helps, doesn't it? When you took a few minions out, of course. A little bit of a fear. But is there any way you can actually clear this board?
He just got straight up double discount because he hit all 3 rifts straight away.
This was
Hearthstone's silly.
It never ends. Okay. Yeah, Bladestorm into Rancor is a lot of armor.
True, actually, yeah.
And that's why I was wondering, that's why I said it's good that more imps were coming out, and then he killed off the Moarg, because the Moarg was 2 health, which then meant that the Rancor on all the imps was doable. But now with the Thalnos, now it means it's doable again, right? Because the Bladestorm will deal 1, put all the imps down to 2, and then you can just hero power off the null to finish it. And again, although it's the Warlock can put out a lot of damage, you probably still don't want to give your opponent tons of armor.
He did swing with the face to pick up the card draw there, and then hero powered the face instead, valuing that extra card draw over that little extra bit of armor, which I do think is right. Because yes, he's stacking lots of armor, and that's making the combo more difficult. Yes, I absolutely agree with everything you're saying, but what did I say, 7 times 8 times 2, which is 112? Yeah, he's
Correct.
not that high yet.
He's close, he's getting there. Bit more armor, a few more days. I mean, the Bulwark is the big one, but obviously Jarla has the Viper to just completely negate that, which is absolutely huge.
Yes, for 0 mana, which he can then just have on the board as a minion that he can then use for the stuff anyway.
Kill it, though, I guess.
That's true, with the Moarg's gone now. That is a big deal, actually.
And School Spirits being at 0, because Tamsin doesn't mimic it, right?
Yes, that is actually a very big deal.
Yeah, you can trip yourself up, trust me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm almost out of cards.
Okay, well, there's a not 0 mana School Spirits, which helps.
Yes.
Thank you.
And even then, like, if we want to deal with, what, 6 times 8 times 2 instead, then that's 96 in that case. So, like,
12.
we're still doing fine, Raven. We're still doing okay.
And this is the problem, right? Like, is there any world that ZloyGruzin's not dead in his own mind next turn? Because Jarla will have 0 cards, therefore he has drawn his deck.
Yep.
Therefore, 1 million damage.
Yep.
And you know a Viper exists.
You do. There are 4 undiscounted cards, though, currently, right? So if one of those is the Viper, one of those is Tamsin, or one of them's the Phylactery, right? Like, that starts to become a lot of mana to play for in one turn.
It does, but I feel like 3 of them would have to, like, 3
Yeah, very
of the key combo pieces would have to be full mana to raise any questions, because you also know that I think the 4 on the left have been quad discounted, right?
Yeah.
Which means that if any of those are the combo pieces, even just one of them, you should be okay, I think. ZloyGruzin doing what he can, of course. Gets the Bulwark of Aznath down, drawing a couple more cards, but now he has to just sit and watch as Jarla draws the last card of his deck.
More bones to gnaw on.
No, Null, Viper, Tamsin, Shipment,
Yep. And then there's-
Phylactery, School Spirits, School Spirits. And we're good.
yeah.
Scent of death.
Yeah, kind of a paint-by-numbers game there from Jarla, but that is often this matchup unless Kaz comes down super early, right? Because the Warrior simply does not interact with anything.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing to interact with. Jarla is going to take game number 3, goes up to a 2-1 score versus one of our new Grandmasters. So all on the line for ZloyGruzin for this next game. He needs to win to have any chance of continuing. And on the other side of that, Jarla needs 1 game win to move on to the weekend.
Yes, indeed. And if I'm remembering rightly, it's now going to be the Charge Warrior coming into play for Jarla, right? The deck that was defeated in the previous game against the Shaman. So we have the Charge Warrior from Jarla going up against the Warlock and the Control Warrior from ZloyGruzin on the other side. And I do think this Charge Warrior might be the biggest question mark in Jarla's lineup, particularly in terms of what he's trying to go for, like the holistic strategy that he seems to have put together. This does seem like the one weakness that maybe isn't going to function as intended, particularly in this series. But still, we did see a pretty rotten draw for him, I would say, overall in the previous game. So we'll see if he can turn his fortunes around this time.
Yeah, there's also a small note. Oh, and it's relevant because he's going to play it this game. It's going to be Warrior versus Warlock for the next game here. Okay. And the Warlock from ZloyGruzin is the Owl, like OTK Warlock. Perfect timing. But I wanted to highlight these cards. These are not key cards for the deck overall, obviously, because Ruin Mithril Rod would be on there 3 times. But Full Blown Evil and the Hysteria in there, there's nothing wrong with these inclusions, but when you suddenly look at this 1 Wicked Shipment, as well as, you know, just 1 Goldshire Null, those are just things that can actually change the numbers on matchups, right? Because, yes, these are like removal tools for kind of removal tools, if you look at the Null and maybe the Coil as well. But it's still like slightly different mana cost, slightly more awkward cards to play. Like a Null can be 1 mana a lot of the time when you're struggling with hand size. A Hysteria, unless reduced, or a Full Blown Evil, unless reduced, is not 1 mana, right? So it can be, again, harder to dump some of these cards. But again, against some more aggressive lineups, obviously Full Blown Evil and Hysteria are fantastic. So all just about those meta reads with the way these players are building these decks.
But I do still expect the Warlock overall to just be a little bit faster than the Warrior on average here. And as we've just seen on the other side, there's no real plan that the Warrior has to be able to resist the amount of damage that Warlock can output on the other side. So Jarla needs one of those kind of turbo draws that sometimes happens with Charge Warrior, where you do just get all the combo pieces by about turn 9 and just get rolling with them, just naturally drawing them 1 by 1 off the top of your deck. But outside of that, I think that this one could be going all the way.
Yeah, you're looking at realistically. What, turn 8 is the earliest you can do significant damage with the combo from Jarla.
Mm-hmm.
And that's if he gets all the pieces by turn 8, which means his draw would, in a weird way, kind of soak, right? In a lot of matchups.
Yes. I suppose that's the thing in a few matchups. This one somewhat included is that your draw can kind of afford to suck as long as you just get all the combo pieces in a timely manner, right? Because the Warlock is not going to put you under immense pressure in the early game. So you can just kind of power through and try and find that win condition. Outrider's Axe is obviously super clutch to be able to cycle harder, and that means that Viper draw is now super clutch from ZloyGruzin on the other side as well, as he now finds his win condition with the weapon.
Yeah, and what's just happened is what I wanted to talk about as well is in terms of the Warlock not pressuring the Warrior down, that's even less likely because of Outrider's Axe. And you saw then ZloyGruzin just kill his own minion, and that is a very common strategy, especially going into, say, turn 3, turn 4, turn 5. Because if you're leaving a minion on board that the Warrior can get just like a free card draw from, that is the exact opposite of what you want to happen. So you'll see Warlocks kill off loads of their own minions in the early game.
Yeah, and if you're going to play the game that way, that also then allows you to greed your Viper even harder because you don't particularly have to worry about Outrider's Axe. And then if Bulwark starts to become a factor in the late game, which, you know, as we were talking about, you do have the damage to just blow through 4 charges of Bulwark of Azeroth and still kill Warrior from about 60 all in one turn if you get the full combo together. But if you want to make your life easier, you can greed that Viper just like Jarla did in the previous matchup.
And again, that's why the pauses from ZloyGruzin in a lot of matchups, you just throw the Armor Smith down, right? But or the Armor Vendor, should I say. But here now, he's just giving, potentially, Jarla just a free card draw, and we can see with the Outrider's Axe in hand. Yep, the case. And that's a big win. Again, the problem with this Warrior is it can be difficult to get the half, well, not even the half, but you'll understand, the side of the deck you want, right? Whether you want the removal side or whether you want the combo side, but any extra card draw helps so much.
Lloyd does Viper the Outrider's Axe here to try and slow down the card draw. We saw a big fist pump there from Jarla as well as he picked up Vipers of his own to respond to the Rune Mithril Rod, which I would imagine he was expecting to see on that turn. So Lloyd did have it, turned it down in order to deny the card draw from his opponent instead.
And what do you think about this? Like, because we saw this in APAC as well, right? I believe it was Glory against Give Please. When Give Please was running double Viper, Glory just didn't play Rune Mithril Rod. At least for a while, because it pains me because, well, of course you want Rune Mithril Rod equipped. It's the best card in the deck. But I also understand that if your opponent has double Viper in their deck, they're going to probably keep it in a mulligan. They're not going to cycle it away until they've killed or killed at least one weapon. So it feels like the odds on them having it is so high. Like, I just wonder how you feel about just this weird not play the weapon on curve because you're scared of double Viper.
Honestly, first off, I think the scenario is a little bit different, but I'll address what you're talking about first.
Sure.
I think Daruk broke it down very nicely in his wrap up of that game at the end, where I think statistically, what Glory did makes sense, right? Why spend 5 mana on something that you're statistically likely to get blown up for 0 anyway? Like, just get on with your game plan otherwise. But then his argument afterwards was, well, what if the percentage of the time that you win the game is that percentage where they don't have one of the 2 Rust-Drop Vipers, right? And I think, I generally agree with that philosophy. In this case, I don't think Zloy's not playing the Rune Mithril Rod because he's necessarily super scared in that position. I think he was just valuing blowing up the opponent's and Outrider's Axe more so than getting his own down. Yeah. Also modified by the chance of there being 2 Vipers on the other side as well. I'm not saying it's not a factor, but in that case, he had another very appealing play to go along with as well. Now, as that's happened and we've gone a further turn down the line, and he's once again not dropped the Rune Mithril Rod into play.
Now we can
really start talking about it. Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely was a different situation, but it's just something that, I mean, if we're going to keep seeing double Viper decks, well, you're going to have to think about whether you even submit this deck, right? Never mind whether you play the Rod on curve or not.
If Jarla could, he'd have 2 oozes, 2 vipers, 2 sticky fingers. Like, they'd all be in there. Every single one of them.
Gruzin going for the tempo owl instead. Oh, there's actually a nice clear into Mutinous here, right? Is Jarla going to get a better turn?
Where's their weak point?
I think against this deck, like using an actual AoE effectively, and then maybe eating something is like about as good a turn as you're going to get right now. I like it a lot.
He's trying to scarf on Tamsin specifically here, right? Would probably be the best hit at this point, now that obviously an owl's already come into play.
And even, I think we discussed this yesterday, obviously off stream, but I think even if you've seen 0 owls, Tamsin still feels like the best kill, right?
Yes. Yeah.
If you could pick something to eat 100% of the time, it would be Tamsin.
As long as people are playing a 2-owl list, and most people do play 2 owls because Mutinous exists, like they don't just want to straight up lose to Mutinous.
Still a reasonable health threat, but full-blown evil. The sort of tech card that ZloyGruzin's running in his version will help him out, line up very nicely with a Drained Soul if he wants it. Could also choose to just double full-blown evil and tap if he wants to retain a Drained Soul.
Yeah, I don't see why not.
I would have loved it if that was the turn he went weapon tap.
Just with a 12-8 in play, he's like, this is perfect.
Now is the time.
I love it.
He chose to spend the mana on Tour Guide instead of retaining the Drained Soul.
All right, fair enough.
I can see it. Like, I think at this point in the game, if the Warrior's playing minions, you're dead, right? So after seeing the Mutinous.
That's true, yeah. Jarla's still a long way short.
Card draw, though. Yeah, you can cycle Rustrat. He's got in class as well. Let's hope what happened to him didn't happen to me the other day when we were practicing, where I basically kept trading these 2 cards to find the 3rd card and never hit the 3rd card. It was horrible. Must have done it, what, 4 or 5 times and just didn't hit Kaz, and Kaz was my only other card in the deck. Mean.
Time to dilly-dally!
Jarla's taking his time. We are used to this. We are professional Jarla casters at this point. But I do think he just needs to increase the speed of his game plan, right? Getting towards 10 mana anyway. Does he need to hold this coin, or could he have just used Cutting Class?
Yeah, really like dumping the coin there to make space more than anything else, right? And
and draw 2 cards, right?
Mana. Yeah.
Yeah, make space,
Getting
draw
the
2
impression
cards.
he hit a fragment here? It doesn't matter because he had 0 mana tap to go alongside it anyway. Okay, it's fine. Huge fist bump
Pops
again
off with
from
the best of them, doesn't he?
But with his 1 discount there, hit a lot of the juice that he's going to want to. I think he knows that this weapon is probably going to get it blown up now, but those are some fantastic discounts to get off the rip.
So Jarl has 1 to the front. He draws Galvanger, which he does not. What is it with Jarla and not drawing Galvanger?
I just don't know.
I'll ask him.
Old Galangal, as I've been trying not to call it this entire time. That's what it is in my head.
Galangar?
Galangal or Galangal. It's like not quite ginger. It's like Thai ginger, or rather, it's a group of things that are all related to ginger. You know, if you have like Thai green curry, it's way better than if you try and make it because you use it's not ginger that's in it, it's galangal.
Right.
And you can't really get that in this country unless you go to like specialist ingredient stores.
I'll make sure to ask for galvanga next time.
Yeah. Make sure my Thai green curry is made with Captain Galangal.
Now, what is the missing ingredient? It looks like it's Wicked Shipment, isn't it?
It's Galangal. I've just told you.
Sorry. Yeah.
What,
forgetting.
what do you mean? I've explained to you why your Thai green curry tastes bad, right?
That's Jarla's dish. I'm talking about Zloy's dish. Okay.
Oh, I see.
More bones to gnaw.
That looks like it's good enough to me. Right? Everything's reduced enough.
Yeah, with
Unless
the
I'm being
second
very
discount.
silly.
Down to 0. Tamsin, Score Spirits.
Moarg as well.
Moarg.
Yeah.
Yep, everything fits in there.
Tick all the boxes you want. That looks like a win. That means we're going to game number 5, unless something goes wrong, but I don't think it will. We did see something go wrong at the Masters Tour in a OTK Wallet game. This looks like ZloyGruzin's all over it.
Firing off everything that he possibly can. And you get a Drain Soul. You get a touch of the Netherism.
What are we going down to now? Is it
Control Warrior versus Charge Warrior.
oh, the old Warrior Mirror.
Yeah.
The way I expected to end the Jarla series at the end of the day. All coming together. It's going to be Oh, go on.
I just want to break down that previous game a little bit, if we can throw some actual analysis in with our discussion of Thai green curry, is that we had the debate about Vipers and Rods and how that interaction should go. But actually now, having watched that pan out for Zloy, he played it very, very smartly. You pointed out, right, he sacrificed a Drain Soul to set up a tour guide. The reason why he set up that tour guide was so that he'd get a guaranteed proc immediately off Rod Backfire the next turn, right? Because that meant he could go Rod Backfire 0 mana tap. Do that again at some point over the course of the game, get 2 discounts on your full hand. There's a very good chance, if you've been spending all your other cards, your Drain Souls, for example, that you've been throwing away for very little value, that those cards that you hit double discount on are then things like Tamsin, Phylactery, all those kind of things. And then, just by those individual procs that you get before your opponent's been able to interact with you with the Vipers, you actually get enough damage to be able to put a massive combo out at the end. So, you know, being that we brought up the debate in the first place, I think that was a very good demonstration from Zloy as to why his side of the argument, playing it that way, being greedy with the rods, does work out in trying to play around that tech removal from your opponent.
And it is important to remember, and maybe even that was a reminder, but you actually don't need that many discounts to pop off with the combo, especially in a slow matchup like against Warrior, right? It's not like you need to turn 6 combo someone. You've got time. So as long as you mentioned, you hit a couple of combo pieces once, maybe twice, you're fine. Like, that is more than enough mana to be able to deal with it and end the game, as we well saw. So
it's because it's not really a true OTK, right? Like, OTK is kind of a nebulous phrase, but you have to play an owl, kill an owl in a separate turn, and that's kind of part of your combo. But that's the expensive part, and you just do that on a different turn. Obviously, don't get me wrong, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you can do it all as an OTK. But most of the time, you've already spent the X amount of mana that you need to spend on the owl previously. So everything else that actually kills your opponent is surprisingly cheap in a lot of situations. Meanwhile, Zloy's very excited by his opening hand, Raven.
And I don't blame him, honestly. It doesn't seem like a wild opening hand to be that excited about, but he has Kaz, which is the biggest hurdle with this Warrior deck. Because your card draw isn't that good, and you don't get to run Goldtooth Mine like Druid does, you can't guarantee draw it. And that's a problem, because Warrior can draw really slow, and you can be so slow that the whole kind of point of your endgame never even happens. You lose before it hits. So just having it available, ready, locked, loaded, ready to go is good. However, it is important to remember, as we saw last game, Jarla is running Mutinous.
Yes.
So Andy has coin, so he can. It's not even an argument of, well, maybe Zloy can coin it out. No, he will win that race. Jarla will win that Mutinous race if he has to, if he can draw it.
Who's Andy, and why does he have Jarla's coin?
Oh, Hilarious.
I thought so.
Both players just smacking each other potentially with these axes now, which is fine. Again, not expecting that many minions to be involved in the game at all outside of both players' win conditions. So why not keep the armor low?
It's just a cycle turn, right? Like, I think Jarla is going to want to play Mutinous on curve as often as possible.
Because you do just lose, I think. Again, in kind of my experience, because yes, ZloyGruzin, let me just triple check his list before I sound silly. His other threat, and yes, it's singular, I'm not counting Rakara, is Raid Boss Onyxia. Jarla just plays Brawl and Blade Storm. Done. You know, like, that's... There's no threat left in the whole deck, right? If Kaz is eaten, I mean. So it's very manageable if Jarla gets to eat Kaz. Have to get there. Even go as far as cycling these Vipers.
Yes, it's not happening with the coin, but it is ready to go for next turn now. Zloy's doing the right thing. He's holding on to every minion he can. This Onyxian Drake hasn't just been slammed into play at any point. He knows that Mutinous protection is important. He knows what he's doing. Oh, finally.
There you are. Curry person. I can't remember.
Thai ginger.
I can't remember what you called it again exactly. Yeah, this is... I mean, depending on what... If Zloy draws the other Onyxian Drake, that's a pretty big deal. But this does feel like it's coming down to a 1 in 3 with this Mutinous for Jarla. Because like I said, like unless you have a different plan in mind, if the Kaz gets targeted by Mutinous, Onyxia is very manageable, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Hero power. Cross fingers.
Yeah, just do anything that doesn't involve playing your Onyxian Drake this turn, I would recommend, Zloy.
And I think that's a very natural thing to not do anyway, because Jarla has the weapon, right? There's a million ways he could get an additional card draw if he played Drake into this. So it's not like he has to actively force himself to play around Mutinous. I don't think you play Drake anyway.
Right. Yeah, makes sense.
He's not gonna overdraw. He's potentially giving Jarla more cycle if he plays Drake. So yeah, to me it's kind of a no-brainer whether there was Mutinous in the game or not.
Yep, that'll do.
Hold on.
I hit my one-note checklist of not playing the 4-5. Armor pass.
Turn's not over yet, Sol.
Okay.
We've got time.
All right. All right. Okay, now we did it.
Get him.
Yeah.
Ooh.
All right.
Okay.
Does, of course, mean if he wants to play Kazakus, he has to do it into a 12-12 this turn?
Hey, we've seen him do it before.
Yeah. I would imagine it's going to take a moment to clear this one up, though. Looks good to me.
Now, weapon gone from Jarla. I wouldn't mind the Drake now, honestly. Maybe he wants to wait a little bit longer because it's a taunt versus a charge combo deck, which I can definitely understand. If he just wants to view it more as a taunt minion as opposed to a shield slam on a stick.
No force on Azeroth can stop me.
Still though, just because ZloyGruzin gets to play Kaz does not mean he's won the game. right? It just means he didn't lose the game, I think is better to say.
I think that is probably a good way of putting it, yes. It gives him a realistic win condition.
Yep, so far as Captain Galvanga to the front and a Faceless. Still looking for a Battle Master to the front or another Faceless or some combination of those cards.
Yep. Yikes. Not a
Blade,
good start
Blade,
unless you want to go for
Blade.
the dream. Yeah.
Spyglass comboing back.
Probably Bubba. Nomish, I imagine.
Yep. The word taunt on it, so seems good.
I think he took staff there. Interesting.
Blade, Blade.
One pick left, Blade, yeah. That's the dream. Underwhelming, I would say. Certainly not a
Yeah.
top tier Kazakus.
I mean, and honestly, it's one of the things that people can talk about and decide what they think of Kaz and how strong it is. But it's one thing that has kept it in check. Like, sometimes you do just whiff. And if your whole deck's built around it, then you're going to lose that game at Hearthstone.
For sure.
Okay, so 9, 10 mana with the coin, 2 mana to 8. Then,
Let's
yep, not quite there yet, right? Needs that second to the front to get cooking.
Yep.
Field Slam available, though, to kill off the Kaz.
Corsair will pick up Bulwark here as well. Not that that is the biggest of deals. Can be useful, actually, considering the only straight up burst in Zloy's deck currently is Embers of Ragnaros. It's actually pretty damn good, isn't it?
And it fits the turn as well, right? To be fair.
Because I usually think of it against Kazakhstan decks in terms of like Locusts or Neutron boards or whatever like that, and it's just like, it's not that effective. When Zloy didn't get any of that stuff and just has Embers, it's going to tank 1,000,000 damage if Jarla can get the timing right.
Well, and even now, right? Shield Slam, swing 5 to face, hero power weapon, like, spend the mana. I don't know. I don't hate it.
Jarla isn't a very spend the mana gamer though, is he? Oh, we did. All right.
Jarla's made some plays that I've suggested, so you know.
This comes up every time. You get to the fight, it's like, yes, Jarla did the thing once that I said. I'm the best.
If this comes up every time, Saul, then is he doing?
It means
the
he
thing
makes
all the
one
time?
play per series that you suggest. Yeah,
I'll take it.
yeah, I mean,
Ain't
it's not a bad ratio. Yeah. Been worse.
So knowing that Jarla's about to hit 10 mana, and Jarla's been, I guess he had coin last turn, but Jarla's been sitting on a fair few cards. I do find it in this matchup always difficult to work out or get any kind of read if your opponent has X amount of pieces of the combo. One, because there's so many potential pieces.
Yes.
Also, neither players needed to use tons of removal, right? So it's like, well, you've not given me a brawl board. What if I have 2 brawls in my deck or something, you know, or in my hand still? That destroy a minion? 2 mana?
It's 4/4 plus taunt.
Oh, it's the 4/4, right?
Mutating injection. Mutating injection.
Is that a cow with a syringe?
Give a cow plus 4/4 and taunt. Oh, now does Jarla bail on the Bulwark for the Outriders axe instead? Start getting the card draw rolling.
I wouldn't. It's tough because we know what the treasures are, right? But I wouldn't hate it because Jarla cannot outlast this, and he has 10 cards left in his deck.
Yeah.
How's he drawing 10? Like, what if it is in the bottom 2, 3, even 4? Like, you're dead, right? If it's in bottom 5.
But if you do this and you just get embered next turn, you're going to feel like a moron, aren't you? Like...
I will laugh, though, so you can at least feel like a moron, but know you've made me laugh. If you Jarla.
Okay. Not the end of the world.
Okay, well, luckily for Jarla, he does have multiple ways to clean this up. With Shield Slam, Hero Power, Minefield. Looks pretty solid, because again, he can't, or probably won't, want Taunt to really in the way on his turn, right? But now there's Taunt and Bulwark, which is frustrating and will require time to sort of hack down, unless Trip the Viper.
Yeah. Jarla's been happily trading them away. Obviously, he doesn't know whether the Bulwark was in hand necessarily. He might do, actually, if it was there from Corsair Cache, but no, it was a 4-charge one, right? So it was a naturally drawn Bulwark. So he has no real idea as to whether that was there or whether it was deleted by the Has deck that came through. So he's been happily trading his away.
Isn't that a little bit strange?
What happened?
He started with Minefield. Couldn't you have just Hero Power swing, draw a card, and then Minefield? I know you'd take more damage, which we can discuss, which is fine.
Yeah, sure.
But I just thought you'd want to draw first and then review and then have clear more minions. But I guess if he gets rid of the taunt, that's the only real thing that matters. So yeah, looking back.
I imagine, the motivation, rightly or wrongly, is that if he minefields first, there's a good chance he has a hero power target, so he can get all three things, right? Like low damage by not attacking the 5/5, hero power a 2-health minion, and attack a weapon into and kill a minion and draw a card. Just didn't really quite work out that way, but Jarla just probably considered it worth the risk to have the best of all three worlds.
Okay, well, Jarla gets an auto card. Oh no. Zloy's going to deny the card draw. I like this a lot. Armor up, going up to 30.
The other Viper
Definitely
should be getting cycled immediately. Barov is useless. Oh, it's so frustrating playing a combo deck that doesn't just draw 20 cards every turn. Why would you do this to yourself?
Wait, so if he goes to 8, that'll be 4. Can't get there, right? I was working out whether just working out whether the coin ever changed like weird combo breakpoints of mana to the front coin, because it's rare that you actually have more than 10 mana to play with in Warrior, right? In this deck. Sure. So like I was just trying to work it out, but it just doesn't if you want to play the Battlemaster. Not with 1 to the front anyway. It's brutal to watch this, isn't it? Like every time we've seen Jarla play this deck, the combo has just not happened.
Yeah.
Not come together in a reasonable time. But again, the deck doesn't run that much card draw, so if you need the big combo, can you expect it to come together?
It's just very jarring having gone through several metas with really hyper-efficient combo decks, a D6 Warlock, a Mizaki Mage, Garrote Rogue, all that kind of stuff. It's just like, draw your deck by turn 9, you know? Like, it's a very, very different beast that we're dealing with right now. Considering Bladestorming away his 1/1s. He is Bladestorming away his 1/1s.
Reasonable.
Lovely stuff. Yep. Just denying that card draw still. All he's doing is he's trying to play big threats where they matter, but he's just trying to buy time for Embers of Ragnaros, right? He's now 4 cards deep into a 10-card deck with 2 Embers of Ragnaros in it. Hasn't hit a single one.
Could go for armor game with hero power, but I think Jarla just shouldn't care about his health anymore. I think he needs to draw cards.
There's 2 treasures he hasn't seen, though. 2.
Well, you know what else he's not seen? The rest of his combo.
I know!
Oh.
I understand. I understand. But Embers of Ragnaros does exist. We know it literally exists. Jarla knows it hypothetically exists.
What if...
So damage is scary.
He could only take 4 this turn if he wanted to, right?
Sure, yeah, no, that's fine.
He could shield slam, draw, take 8, but then just Barov hero power.
Okay, that's
Heal
creative.
for 4.
Yeah, I don't hate it.
Because I just think he has to draw. Because if he's scared of Embers, he could still be drawn next turn. He's still in trouble because there's another Embers. Whereas if he kills his opponent next turn, that feels much better. Gonna go for the... I know he said safe then, and it's not the right word. He's just gonna go for the Armageddon instead. Trying to go for a world record of Jarla making 2 of my plays in a series, but whiffed.
Zloy drawing Bubba Ray Dudley again. Not what you want. Much rather Devon got the embers at this point.
Understand that reference?
Do you actually?
Yep.
Nice.
DDT, right? Through a table? Is that what they used to do?
3D.
Oh, 3D. Oh, okay. It was, yeah, okay.
Entirely different moves, but I understand.
It was just...
They would be thematically
rhyme.
confused.
They rhyme.
They rhyme. They don't rhyme. I guess they do rhyme.
Yes! Take some of that. Victory. I thought you knew your rhymes and your wordplay, Sato. I didn't know I had to school you on rhymes.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah, it's just weird, like the letter D and the letter T. Yeah, like, yeah, technically that's an assonance rhyme, I guess. Sure, if you want to get into it, fine. All right, we did it. Hey!
Combo.
He
Attack.
drew to the front.
Finally. With only 4 cards left, it was bottom 5, but it was just about enough. ZloyGruzin had limited treasures that were actually active damage-dealing cards. And unfortunately for him, he was kind of in the same boat as Jarla. They both had a rough go of getting to the cards they actually needed to end the game. But Jarla finally got there, takes the win, takes the series. But it was extremely close, and I think taking away what these players need to do with these 3 weeks of play they have in Season 1, I think just in general, a decent showing from ZloyGruzin on his first week, right? He got on stream on the Friday. He took Jarla to pretty much either player getting 1 good draw away from the series ending, right? And I think that is a good, solid performance for your first time on stream as a European Grandmaster.
Yeah, and I think, you know, he was playing matchups at a high level as well, which is what I really want to look for when players come into Grandmasters like this. Like, his navigation of, like, the instant procs on the rods and the LTK matchup, the fact that he was so aggressively playing around Jarla drawing cards in that situation when he knew what his win condition was. It's just kind of unlucky not to make his way to embers in that situation. But there we have it. I mean, years change, but apparently the results stay the same. Gabby and Jarla winning games of Hearthstone in European Grandmasters. Who woulda thunk it, Raven?
It's just great to see, isn't it? I mean, I like seeing sort of new players, I'll say, or at least new to Grandmasters or new to us. You know, come up there, see what they can do or do well. But there's nothing like seeing good players continue to be good, right? Gabby continues to just dominate and just win games of Hearthstone as he does. Jarla shows that he's just not going anywhere anytime soon, and I genuinely hope that's not the case. And across the other groups as well, we have just tons of great players going through, and already, although I enjoy shorter form formats, so we only have 4 weeks of Grandmasters, as we've said many times, I'm already a little bit like, oh, we're getting through week 1 already. You know, I want to see some more. But yeah, that's going to be our top 8. We're going to kick that off tomorrow. We'll do all the quarterfinals tomorrow, and then we are going to move on throughout the rest of the week.
It's all filth, Raven. It's all filth. Look at it. Super Fake versus Jarla, first and foremost. That's going to be amazing. Jarla with the Charge Warrior that struggled today, going up against a lineup, which is going to be looking very, very interesting against a Control Warrior style strategy. We'll get into that more tomorrow. But just drop your eyes down to the bottom. Gabby, Fury Hunter. I'm not even going to heap hyperbole on that. It sells itself. Put it on the matinee. Gabby versus Fury Hunter. That's all you need.
It is going to be a great ending to tomorrow, no matter what. And then we have, of course, the Viper RDU match and J4 versus Blaze. But again, something just to remind everyone of. Yes, this is week 1. Historically, week 1 has been merely the first of many steps for these players. That is not the